Good Tuesday morning. This just in, Ed Lee, the mayor of San Francisco and a prominent backer of the city's tech community, died this morning at age 65, CBS News reported. The Senate election in Alabama is today. And two big names in aftermarket auto parts are partnering to fend off Amazon. As Alabamians head to the polls, here's the context: Republicans have a two-seat majority in the Senate. Alabama hasn't had a Democratic senator in 25 years, but the controversy around Roy Moore has made a once-safe seat potentially up for grabs even if the tax legislation is signed into law this year. We'll get to the state of play in a moment, though there's a chance things don't get wrapped up before the holidays. Republicans still have plenty of other issues, from healthcare to infrastructure spending, that will have to get through the Senate. Having Doug Jones, Mr. Moore's Democratic opponent, in the Senate would make that effort more difficult. So could having a Republican senator who feuds with Mitch McConnell and other GOP leaders. The odds, pre-election polls have been incredibly volatile, though Nate Silver thinks Mr. Moore is in the lead. Polling stations close at 8 p.m. E.T. _________________________________________________________________________________________________________________ on DealBook. Briefing was written by Andrew Ross Sorkin in New York, and Michael J. de la Merced and Amy Tsung in London. Argues Andrew in his latest column, citing the $1.5 billion in synergies read, cost-saving layoffs that the analysts think the chipmaker could reap by buying Qualcomm. Based on Broadcom's moves with previous takeovers, that could translate into about 5,400 jobs being cut. That runs contrary to what Broadcom's CEO, Hock Tan, told President Trump at a news conference last month, announcing that the company would move its corporate headquarters to the U.S. from Singapore. More from Andrew's column. Qualcomm has its own headache with Elliott Management challenging the $110 a share price that the company agreed to pay for NXP Semiconductors. The chipmaker must now wage two deal battles at once. While some analysts and investors think Qualcomm might raise its bid for NXP as a way to deter Broadcom, which doesn't want the NXP deal to become any more expensive, Qualcomm says that for now it's sticking by its $110 a share offer. Under the terms, Interstate will become the exclusive supplier of car batteries to Advance, one of the biggest auto parts sellers in the United States, starting this spring. Interstate believes that the partnership could bolster its sales significantly, while Advance is hoping that a product alliance with a well-regarded parts maker would help stanch a 43% drop in its stock price over the past year. The big picture, the companies view this as a way to help guard against Amazon, which has been moving, among many product lines, into the aftermarket car parts business. From a statement by Scott Miller, Interstate C.E.O. Who else is being troubled by Amazon? The Fed, which is reckoning with e-commerce's effect on inflation as it decides how quickly to raise interest rates. The department's long-awaited study of the Senate Republicans' proposed overhaul runs to about 489 words in length, including the title and footnotes, and, in the reckoning of even conservative commentators, does not actually detail the legislation's economic effects. The question, will the Treasury Department's paper change any lawmaker's mind? The NYT quoted a senior Senate aide who said that congressional Republicans were blindsided by the move, especially since it came out so close to the start of formal talks between House and Senate negotiators to reconcile their tax bills. The reaction from analysts: "It's an odd way to analyze a tax bill," said Scott Greenberg at the Tax Foundation. "I don't believe in magic," said David Brockway, a staff director of the Joint Committee on Taxation during the Reagan administration. Of a 1 percentage point difference between the Treasury's economic growth assumptions and that of the Congressional Budget Office, Mark Mazur, an economist who worked for the Obama administration, told the WAPO, "It's the equivalent of me being 1 foot taller and able to dunk a basketball." The tax fly-around small investors remain unhappy about the Senate bill's first-in first-out stock-selling rule. WSJ, finance ministers from Europe's largest economies wrote to the White House and the Treasury Department saying that tax cut plans would flout international agreements and undermine trade. The proposed tax code changes could make the United States far less friendly than financial centers abroad like Hong Kong and London, write Cliff Asness and Michael Mendelsohn of the hedge fund AQR Capital Management. WSJ, Comcast acknowledged publicly yesterday that it's out of the running. "We never got the level of engagement needed to make a definitive offer," the cable giant said in a statement. That clears the path for Disney to buy the Fox television and movie studios, stakes in the international broadcasters Sky and Star and other significant divisions. "As we said yesterday, a deal could be struck this week, though it's unclear whether an announcement would specify a role at Disney for James Murdoch. If he does get one, it probably would involve overseeing the international broadcast businesses." A lighter take that's courtesy of Paul Pendergrass, formerly DealBook's Jack Flack columnist. The FT named Susan Fowler, the former Uber engineer whose blog post helped kick off a reckoning about sexual misconduct by men in the workplace, as its Person of the Year. NFL Network suspended 3 analysts, including the Hall of Fame running back Marshall Faulk, after a former employee accused the men of sexually harassing and assaulting her. NYT, 4 women who had publicly accused Mr. Trump of sexual misconduct renewed their allegations publicly yesterday, demanding that Congress investigate the president's actions. NYT, Representative Blake Farenthold, Republican of Texas, is under scrutiny by the House Ethics Committee amid new allegations of a frat house atmosphere in his congressional office. NYT, Mario Batali has stepped away from his restaurant empire after 4 women spoke with Eater about being groped and harassed by the celebrity chef. Eater, NYT, The New Yorker fired a prominent political journalist, Ryan Lizza, over what a representative called improper sexual misconduct. Politico, the kind of sexual harassment training that is increasingly spreading in corporate America doesn't work. NYT, that's what Kamath Palihapitiya, the former Facebook executive turned venture capitalist, said at a Stanford Graduate School of Business talk last month. Mr. Palihapitiya, who was a vice president of growth at the tech juggernaut, recommended that users take a hard break from social media. More from his chat. Extra credit, Kevin Roos of the NYT delved into the world of the alt-right tech start UPS and found design that's reminiscent of the 1990s and growth prospects that appear similar to the post.com bust 2000s, since these companies are largely shut off from mainstream sources of funding. As Bitcoin continues its rocket-like ascent, I don't think anyone wants to go in and fight the trend, a brokerage executive told the WSJ. Both the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodities Futures Trading Commission are closely watching the frenzy over digital currency. Regulators have already tightened the reins on at least one digital currency matter, The food review app Munchie cancelled its initial coin offering yesterday after the SEC issued a warning about the forthcoming deal. The Bitcoin fly around the gap between the futures price and the Bitcoin price has caused some concern. Bloomberg: futures tied to Bitcoin are a big deal, but a bigger one would be the emergence of options, according to Andy Mukherjee. Gadfly: Jessica Verrilli, the Twitter executive who oversaw the company's merger's strategy, is leaving at the end of the year. Recode: Martin Guzman and Joseph Stiglitz of Columbia University and Antonio Weiss, formerly of Lazard and the Obama administration, in a WAPO op-ed on how Puerto Rico bondholders must take a hit to help the island recover financially from catastrophic storm damage. Mr. Trump has boasted of cutting more regulations than have other presidents, but government records tell a different story. Bloomberg: Jim Simons, the billionaire founder of Renaissance Technologies, shares the key to his investing success. He says he never overrode the model. New Yorker: Carl Icahn has picked another board fight with Xerox. WSJ: SoftBank has agreed to invest another $500 million in the satellite broadband provider OneWeb, according to a person familiar with the matter. WSJ: the French IT services firm Atos is making an unsolicited bid to buy the smart card maker Gemalto for about $5 billion, adding to a series of deals in the payments sector. WSJ: Westfield, the mall operator based in Australia, agreed to a takeover by the European property company Unibail Rodamco, which valued it at $15.7 billion. WSJ: the boom in special-purpose acquisition companies is driven by huge sums of money trying to find a home and any half-decent return, which gives it all a peak of the market's feel. Heard on the street: KKR will replace Blackstone as the manager of a credit vehicle focused on small and medium companies with below investment-grade credit ratings. WSJ: Steve Cohen's Point72 Ventures has invested a fraction of his $13 billion fortune in early-stage fintech start UPS, but he's not looking for VC returns. The Information: Apple made less than $100 million by selling stock in December 1980. Massachusetts regulators wouldn't let individual investors touch it because they deemed it too risky under rules aimed at weeding out high flyers that don't have solid earnings foundations. MarketWatch: HSBC said that American authorities were preparing to dismiss criminal charges against the bank, 5 years after it reached an agreement to avoid prosecution related to lapses in its money laundering controls. NYT: want this in your own email inbox? Here's the sign up. You can find live updates of DealBook coverage throughout the day at newyorktimes.com/dealbook. Follow Andrew at Andrew Sorkin, Michael at M_Dealimmerst and Amy at Amy Tsung on Twitter. We'd love your feedback as we experiment with the writing, format, and design of this briefing. Please email thoughts and suggestions to bizday@newyorktimes.com.